Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar for engineering and manufacturing, where we're going to cover the T-level employer board launch. If you just bear with us just for 30 seconds or so while we allow for the final few people to join, and we'll make a start. Okay, numbers seem to be settling down now, so I think we'll make a start. So good afternoon, everyone. My name's Scott Wilkins, and I'm the Industry Manager for Engineering and Manufacturing here at City and Guilds. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining the webinar this afternoon. We have a number of colleagues online today from City and Guilds and our partners EAL. And today we will take you through all that is T-levels and how we will engage with you as employers. If I could just have the next slide, please, Susie. So the agenda today that we're going to cover will be an initial introduction from Patrick Craven, our Exec Director of Partnerships and Policy. And then we're going to go through the partnership we have with our colleagues at EAL, and then we're going to dive into T-levels, what they're all about, the design approach taken to those, and the key milestone dates that we have for feeding back to IF8, and then importantly the employer board itself, its function, and how we are really looking forward to engaging with yourselves as part of this process. And then there will be an opportunity at the end for Q&A as well. I am aware that there are some college-based providers online with us today, and that's fantastic, and welcome to you. And we will be talking, I guess, in some ways to your network of employers as well as yourselves, and of course we want to be working with yourselves as well, and also your employers. So a very warm welcome to yourselves, and finally also to our employers. Okay, so I'm going to hand over now to Patrick Craven to do an opening piece. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much, Scott, and welcome everybody. Thank you for giving up your time today on this launch of the webinar looking at the engineering and manufacturing T-levels. I'm delighted as well to be joined by colleagues at City and Guilds and colleagues from EAL. We already have a fruitful working relationship supporting construction and building services engineering qualifications, and this will continue into the engineering T-levels as well. So just by way of a bit of background, I think the place of engineering as a discipline has always been highly valued. I think in the UK, it represents, about 20% of our overall UK turnover. About 30% of all registered enterprises have some kind of overlap or footprint in the engineering sector. So plays a very dominant role in our labour market profile. There's the work at the T-levels is particularly important because we know that, generally speaking, young people have an interest in engineering. Despite that, probably careers advice has not always been as best as it could be in this area. Probably about, I think the last survey suggested about 25% of young people have an awareness of what the engineering disciplines involve, but no more than that. So there's some work to be done there, I think, in terms of properly making young people understand what a career in engineering can be. The current policy reforms as set out by government have very clearly started to identify some channels of engagement for 16-year-olds, either conventional A-level academic routes, apprenticeship routes where they exist at that age entry level, or these new T-level rejuvenated technical pathway for young people. And it's in that area where I think we're very privileged to have an opportunity to shape what the education profile for engineering will be for 16 to 18-year-olds in England, and would be delighted to be working with yourselves and a range of industry and employer bodies to move that forward. The reality, I guess, where we find ourselves at the moment within the pandemic is that the apprenticeship route is a challenge where organisations are constricting, and therefore job roles are less abundant. But in periods like that, then actually the opportunity to ensure that the new talent is coming through the education system becomes even more crucial, and that's where T-levels will play a very important role to ensure that we have the right calibre of students progressing up to level 3 through mainstream education, who can then progress into the profession and occupations. The Working Futures report that was produced predicting, I guess, the demand between 2014-24 suggested that there'd be an annual demand for about 120,000 new places, and predicted within that there was a shortfall of the right sort of skilled applicants that would be coming into the profession. So we've got a challenge, but a huge opportunity to address that and to ensure that we recover as a nation and the sector recovers appropriately as well. So thank you again for joining us on the webinar. I hope you found it informative, or you'll find it informative, and we look forward to a fruitful relationship with many of you to make the T-levels a reality. Thanks a lot, Scott, and I'll hand back to you and the team now.
Thank you, Patrick, and much appreciated for your time today. Okay, as I mentioned earlier on, we are working with our partners at EAL to deliver the technical qualifications for the engineering and manufacturing T-level. So EAL we will both be drawing on our vast experience in the sector, our heritage at City and Guilds of over 140 years, and of course the technical expertise that EAL will be bringing, and their employer groups, networks, and the development teams that they have as well. But together, we have a very clear focus on the T-levels, on quality, on the currency of content, and ultimately ensuring that what we deliver meet your needs as employers, to make sure that the young people or the engineers of tomorrow are coming out with the skills that you as employers need moving forward. Can I have the next slide, please? So what are T-levels? So T-levels are the new qualifications of the future for vocational education. Essentially, going forward, there will only be 3 pathways open to young people. There will be T-levels, there will be apprenticeships, and there will be A-levels. And T-levels will have parity of esteem with A-levels as a level 3 qualification. They will be the vocational equivalent. And they are designed to respond to the change of market needs by employers, providers that are going to be needed for the future. They're very much created in partnership with employers and the industry in developing that content. It has been experts within the field who have put together the occupational content that will shape the T-levels. So they'll be very much focused on delivering what employers need for the future. A huge part of T-levels is around employer placement, work placement, so real life placement. So looking at the T-level program, the makeup of the program. Now you'll see on screen there an area that's surrounded by a black outline. that is the T level, the TQ, and in engineering and manufacturing, there are 3 pathways which we'll come on to in a couple of slides. Each of those pathways has a technical qualification, so there'll be 3 qualifications developed for the engineering and manufacturing T level. It consists of a core, which is made up of concepts and theories and a range of transferable core skills, and that's roughly round about 50% of the total qualification time. That will be assessed by an external exam and a substantial employer set project. The second part is the occupational specialism. Again, this is made up of around 50% of the total qualification time, and it's graded pass, merit or distinction. Now, this is based on the occupational maps defined by EEF 8, and it will be assessed by a synoptic practical assignment. So that's the core TQ, the core technical qualification. In terms of the overall T-level program, it also includes a significant work placement between 45 and 60 days in duration. It consists of maths, English and digital skills. It consists of any other license to practice type requirements that may be required by the sector, and finally enrichment and tutorial. So that's what makes up the T-level program. So there is the EEF 8 panel that looks at the standards, the apprenticeship standards and the assessment plans for apprenticeships. There's the T-level panel, which looks at the T-level technical qualifications and divides the outline, core and occupational specialism. And then there is the likes of ourselves and DAL as awarding organisations who develop the T-level qualification, the technical qualification. Now, T-levels do align to apprenticeship standards. So where an apprenticeship standard has been deemed to map a minimum of 50% to the content, it's been highlighted and linked to the T-level panel. So it does very much align to the standards, to the apprenticeship standards. And again, these are at level 3. Okay, if we could have the next slide, please. So I'm going to hand over now to Simon York, who will talk through the 3 pathways with respect to each of the technical qualifications. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Scott. Can you hear me okay, Scott?
I can indeed, Simon, yes.
Thanks, Scott. So looking at the structure of the technical qualification that sits within the T-level, we can see on the slide that we have an engineering core component, a pathway core component, and then 3 pathways which sit within the T-level itself. So starting with the core component, what's in a core? So what's transferable within different occupational specialisms within engineering and manufacturing? Well, there's quite a lot actually. The core content contains things related to how we work in the industry and across the sectors, things like maths and science to be able to solve different problems. And it also provides an overview of the different subjects related to the sectors, such as materials and material properties, mechanical principles, electrical, electronic principles, and mechatronics. And it also covers the things that wrap around engineering to be able to allow us to work effectively. It includes things like health and safety and business awareness, quality assurance and improvement, project management, and that's just a brief overview of the breadth of the core. And as you can see, underneath the core and the pathway core components, you also see 3 pathways there: maintenance, installation and repair, manufacturing, processing and control, and design and development. And dealing with each in turn, we're looking at the pathway core for maintenance, installation and repair. Sorry, can we just stay on the previous slide? We'll just go through the pathways on this slide before we start to look at the occupational specialisms. Maintenance, installation and repair looks at the principles, practices and techniques for maintenance and repair. You're looking at things like how engineering products are configured and modified and how engineered systems are decommissioned. For the manufacturing, processing and control, the pathway core looks at things like how the mechanical and electrical principles are applied across different contexts and different systems. It also looks at how manufacturing and processing works in practice, including the tools and techniques and complex systems used to carry this out. And finally, this pathway core looks at quality in engineering and manufacturing from both an assurance and quality improvement perspective. The next pathway we come to is design and development, the design and development pathway. And this pathway takes a look at how customer and client requirements are interpreted and how we can use the principles and processes of design to satisfy a need and how ideas can be applied and communicated. And as Scott's already mentioned, the core knowledge and skills is assessed through a combination of exams and an employer set project. So let's have a look at the next slide and have a look at a bit more of the detail underneath the different pathways and the occupational specialisms that sit within them. So you can see for the maintenance and installation and repair pathway, there are 6 occupational specialisms that sit underneath it. So the first one there you can see is mechanical, and that has a focus on things like materials, machinery, mechanics and dynamics. And I suppose for context, if we would apply it to an apprenticeship standard, and obviously we're not implying that necessarily the only progression route is apprenticeships, although it's a valuable one. You know, the great thing about the T-level is the flexibility of progression options. But if we were to apply it to an apprenticeship standard, maybe the maintenance operations engineering technician pathway would be a realistic one for mechanical because it has a mechanical pathway within it. We then come to mechatronics that focus on the interplay between electrical, mechanical and computer-based systems. And once again, it could be useful to compare that to the maintenance operations engineering technician standard, or maybe the mechatronics maintenance technician pathway of the engineering technician standard. For electrical electronic, obviously relates to topics such as power generation, telecommunication, electronic technology. Once again, a good line into maintenance operations, apprenticeship standard, and the same can be said for control and instrumentation, which investigates how to work with systems that measure, monitor, and control variables. The vehicles occupational specialism looks at how to maintain and repair various systems present within vehicles such as engines and transmission systems, and there's certainly a synergy with the light vehicle maintenance technician apprenticeship standard. The final occupational specialism within this pathway is energy and utilities, and that takes a look at the skills required to work in the power, gas, water and waste management sectors. And there's an obvious connection with the utilities engineering technician standard there. So let's have a look at the next pathway now. Can we just move on one slide, please? The design and development pathway. So obviously more from a design perspective, but you'll see some similar disciplines within it. So the first one is our mechanical pathway. Second one, electrical electronic engineering, then control and instrumentation engineering and structural engineering. And all of these pathways focus on how the specialism is used to analyze and interpret information, how to evaluate designs and make improvements, and how to propose and design solutions, and how to communicate, collaborate and manage processes so that those designs can be communicated effectively. And the nearest standard for alignment from a resource perspective and from a potential progression route will be something like the engineering design and drafts person, which has very similar pathways to those you can see on the screen within it. So let's move to the next slide and have a look at the manufacturing processes and control occupational specialisms. So you can see there's 4 in this one as well: production technologies, manufacturing technologies, processing and materials. So production technologies looks at the way in which items are produced on an industrial scale, so effectively advanced manufacturing. And the machinist pathway of the engineering technician standard could be an applicable standard and potential progression route. Manufacturing technologies looks at the manufacturing industry and how we use a range of techniques to create a finished product. So a standard that would align quite nicely with that pathway could be advanced furniture CNC technician. Processing technologies looks at process operations and the underpinning chemical, physical or biological processes. And once again, from a standards perspective, something like food and drink advanced process operator aligns well. And the final occupational specialism is the materials technology and this looks at how materials are produced and processed to make products. And something like maybe the metal casting or paper maker standards align well with that pathway. And as mentioned already, the occupational specialisms are assessed through we tend to use the term synoptic or holistic project, where it brings the learning and the skills together in in quite an in-depth project. So that's it for the overview of the actual technical qualification itself. I'm now going to hand over, I think it's to Carly for the next slide. He's going to provide an overview of our design and development process.
Hello, my name is Carly Flood and I'm the lead development manager who's working on this project. I'm very keen to talk to employers and some of the providers who are on this call to discuss how we're developing the qualification and the assessments and ways that we can get you involved. So the first thing is about, well, what are we doing at the moment? The big thing with the TQ is that it will be employer focused. It must be employer focused because that's the kind of people that we're trying to serve through creating these qualifications. My job is to ensure that we make clear considerations of the learner and how they can access the qualification, but also that we capture as many voices within our development process to ensure that it's future focused, but also that it's something that the market wants. So I'm all ears over here and I'm really happy to talk to everyone. Can I have the next slide, please, Susie? So what is it specifically that we need employer validation about? We can see in the right corner there where it is highlighted in blue that the really big important thing that we require is that you keep us relevant, you keep us up to date, and you can tell us things that probably don't read us right anymore in the industry. The outline content is being compiled by a group of employers and headed by our colleagues at the Institute. But even in the short space of time between that compilation and now, there will be advances in the sector. And we just want to always make sure that our qualification and all materials are up to date, but also that we capture the correct parlance and that we correctly pitch the learners at the right level for when they enter the workforce. So we believe that capturing your voices throughout this entire process will be the answer to that. Can I have your next slide? Thank you. So the big question then is, when will this validation happen? What is it that you're asking me to do? You can see in green, these are the sort of main touch points that we have with our employer board, where we would present to you the materials that we've put together. So those of you who are already involved with some sort of learning and development will be familiar with handbooks, qualifications, specifications and assessments. Some of you may not, that's also useful. And then we would come and we would present these to you, what we're thinking, why we're doing it, the rules that we've done it, and we would like to really listen to what you guys have got to say. What is it that we might have got wrong? What is it that we've got right? What you want to see more of? Ways that we can put it in a way that would make it more palatable for the industry, things that you want to ensure that the learner really has when they finish the qualification. So you can see there in January, February, April and June, we would really like to engage. And there's lots of different ways, but we'll get onto that in a little bit. Can I have the next slide? How are we doing it at the moment? So my job at the moment, and my apologies to my colleagues who are sick of me putting meetings in their calendars, is about amplifying all of the content that we've been given from our colleagues at the Institute. I'm trying to work out how we should fit the qualification together, how many hours should be involved, what experts we should be working with, where the content needs to be maybe moved or queried. And then when we get that into a totally different shape, probably in the next couple of months, I would then like to bring together a group of employers and providers and present where we're at. And this is what we call milestone 1, which is kind of as part of our 3 main phases of our development process, and see where we are, where we're up to, and what it is that we would like to add or take away. It's key to ensuring that this qualification is successful, is discussing it with the people who will be on the other side and bringing our learners into the workforce. Next slide, please. So the big things that I'll be presenting will be, what is our approach to assessment? So how much of the content we cover, how long it takes, how the assessment will look, the practical assessment specifically that you can imagine. What is it that the learners will be doing? What is it that our approach has been designed to do? What's the strategy? How will we do this year on year? Some of these things will be specific to how the qualification operates, thinking about providers and people in colleges and schools up and down the country. And some of it will be about how will it be perceived? What will that grade mean? What does that learner at that grade actually look like in the real world. And this is why I would like to validate with everyone on this call. Can I have the next slide, please? I'm going to hand you over to my colleague Scott, who was speaking before, but really my big question is, please get involved. And I want to say how you can get involved when I'll share you with Scott Wilkins now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carly, and thank you also to Simon for your input just now. So just a reminder at this point, we will have time for Q&A at the end of the session, so please do input your questions into the question box on your screen, and we will endeavour to get through as many of those as possible. So as Carly says, we really need your expertise here. You are the employers, and we want to make sure that what we produce is going to give you the young people to serve your organisations with the skills that you need in the future. So we really want you, as the industry experts, to work with us. And as Simon illustrated earlier on, the T levels, between the 3 T levels, cover really the breadth of the engineering and manufacturing sector. And so we need to work with employers of all sizes in all corners of the country to make sure this really does deliver for you. For our provider colleagues that are on the webinar this afternoon, we know you'll be working with employers local to yourselves, and so we want to work with you, with your employers, to bring this to fruition as well. So I can't state strongly enough how much we value your input into these qualifications, and it's about hearing your concerns as well, and to work with you on those. So if we move on to the next slide, the purpose of the board. So what we are looking to do is convene a board, initially with a focus firmly on the T levels, but of course there is opportunity beyond that to support us with our strategic direction in where we go with engineering and manufacturing as an organisation over the longer term. But primarily the board is very much focused on T levels, and it will be integral to delivery of the T level. So it's made up of yourselves as employers to come together at key points throughout the next couple of years and beyond. And I am very aware, we are very aware of the time commitment that could be available to you. And so we will work in as flexible way as we possibly can. That could be through generic webinars, it could be small Teams-based meetings while we're not able to get together in person. And what I would envisage is that we have a board where we're looking at the core and holistically, and then subgroups which will have a focus on each of the 3 technical qualification developments. And we will work with you to make that work, as I say, as flexibly as we possibly can. Now, there's benefits to yourselves to be part of our board. We're obviously going to be calling on your expertise to develop the qualifications, and we will hopefully be able to inform you around the wider educational landscape as well. And as I say, it's a forum where you also can voice your concerns as well. But ultimately, we'll be asking you to validate and sign off what we're developing. As Carly said, this is very much a development with employers at the heart of it. And so, to go some way to recognise that, we will issue all members with a digital credential illustrating our value to you and your commitment to us as well. And that will be something that you can share with your networks, on your social media platforms, on your email signatures, etc. So a lot of value we hope that you will see to that. We certainly do, in a recognition of your work with us. as I say, the first milestone we'll be working to will be at the beginning of February, and so we'll be looking to convene the first groups, hopefully this side of the Christmas break. Okay, so what I'd like to do is, before we move on to questions, what I'd like to do first of all is just ask you a direct question so that we know who can we will be liaising with. I'd just like to ask you first of all, those of you on the call today, if you are willing to join our employer board, and where for the providers that are on the call, I appreciate you may be talking with or answering with a lens over your employer network, but if you feel that your employers want to work with us, with yourselves, then please do answer yes to that. So I'm really hoping, and we're getting some really positive responses, I'm really hoping that we've illustrated the importance and the value that you will bring to this, and therefore you'd be willing to work with us. And we acknowledge it may not be yourself, but a member of your team. But in the first instance, if we can connect through yourselves, then that will be great. Okay, I'll just give it a few seconds for people to respond to. Okay, so if everyone could just answer that poll, that would be really appreciated. I think there's some we're still waiting to hear from. Don't be shy. Nearly everyone's responded now. Final few just to respond on there for us. Okay. Okay, so if we just have the next slide, please. Just before we go into questions, there are various ways that you can connect to us. I think I might need to close that poll. Okay. So there's various ways you can connect with us to receive the latest information. So we have our dedicated engineering Twitter page. You'll see the handle there. Please do email me directly, and I will ensure that if I don't respond to you personally, a member of the team, the relevant person, certainly will. And importantly as well, do register on our website. The link is there for our dedicated T-level employers page, which we will be updating regularly, and also for email updates where you'll receive the latest focus alerts and updates. Okay, I'm going to move us into questions now. There are several questions coming in. Do please keep coming in with your questions. We've got a decent amount of time left to answer your questions, so please do keep entering your questions, and I'm going to now open up to all of us that are on the call today to answer some of those questions. So I'll go with the first one, and then I'll hand it to others as well. First question says, T-levels learners won't be in employment, so how can there be an employer project as part of the assessment of the core? So although learners won't be employed, they will be completing between 45 and 60 days of work experience. And so they'll apply the learning from the qualification to their work-based environment and use that in order to complete a project that we'll be working with yourselves as employers to develop. And they will create that project using the knowledge that they have gained thus far through the program. Does Simon or Carly want to come in with another question while I just read through?
Yeah,
No, I can. Oh,
sorry,
we were going to add the employer set project question there. Yeah, I can appreciate the person who posted this question. It is a little bit of a misnomer. When it says employer set really what we mean is that it is designed in collaboration with employers. It's not something that the employer has to create whilst the learner's on placement. So some people call it the core project for that reason, but yeah, that's really what that that term really means.
Thanks, Carly. So the next question is a very topical one, actually. Is how will you differentiate between different target industries, i.e. the needs of a BMS controls engineer compared to an automation engineer? And I say topical because it's something that we've discussed a lot internally already. It's sort of a balance of standardization between the assessments themselves and the flexibility to be able to respond to local needs. It's a real challenge, you know, and it's a trade-off to get that right. I think we're quite keen to explore that further with employers and to discuss that in a bit more detail, both with employers and providers, to make sure we have the balance right, where there's potentially a level of flexibility if needed, but that we're very secure that the experience is the same across different people carrying out the T-level, which is actually alluded to in a question a little bit further down. I'll just see if I can pick it out. How will consistency of experience be maintained between colleges, regions, employers and industries? And it's a good point, and it's something that, I mean, I don't know whether you want to mention it, Carly, but it's something that's certainly taxing us and taxing Carly as we work through it. And that it's something we're very, very careful to be able to ensure that across the different pathways, there's a consistency of experience and a consistency of delivery and a consistency of assessment approach. So we provide an overarching look and ensure that consistency is applied across the 3 pathways. Obviously, the core's common, so everybody carries out the core, which creates a level of consistency and a set of knowledge and skills that everybody does. Is there anything you want to add to that, Carly, about the approach?
No, just to echo what you were saying, yeah, that's something that we're working on at the moment to ensure that each of the pathways have an equal level of demand and that everyone is served appropriately in each of those pathways. So good point, but yes, it's on our radar. Thank you.
There's a question around the duration of the work experience placement, how that will operate, and whether it will be a chunk or spread across the 2 years. So that can be either a block or more flexible with day release as an option. So it's not tied. It can be operated with flexibility as well. Someone has asked how do T-levels, as they are level 3, can they progress onto a level 3 apprenticeship engineering technician, or do they only progress higher? So no, absolutely they can move into a level 3 apprenticeship standard. They will reach a competence threshold through the T-level, and of course through moving on to a level 3 apprenticeship program, it will enable them to pick up on the additional competencies and skills needed to achieve that at level 3. So yes, they can move into a level 3 apprenticeship program. Let's read some of the others. You said level 4 qualification. Someone has asked, is it envisaged apprenticeships would eventually be completed this qualification? So the T-levels are at level 3.
Scott, that probably means for progression.
So yes, you can progress, absolutely. So I've lost the question now.
Yeah, I'll move on to another one, quite an interesting one around work experience. I know really this presentation was to give detail on the technical qualification. The work experience sits outside of that, but obviously it's an important and integral component of the T-level. And this question is around the work experience. Who will be offering the work experience if employees are engaging with apprentices? It's a fair and legitimate question, and obviously finding solutions to how to work with employees to make sure that the work experience can be met, the work experience requirements can be met on the T-level is going to be reasonably challenging. We have seen some examples in centres which we thought were quite creative. I know in centres I've worked in the past, we've done this, where when the apprentice attends the college for the delivery, the full-time student was actually attending that employer and effectively replacing them. Obviously, they carry out a geography match and a sort of skills match to make sure that the full-time programme and the apprenticeship were of a similar type, similar sort of skills and knowledge required, and then they'd swap over. And where they found that particularly beneficial was creating a pipeline of talent into the employee's organisation, and also that a lot of the health and safety considerations had already been carried out through sort of health and safety inspections and visits. So there are some possible creative solutions around it. There's no illusion that it's going to be quite difficult to get 45 to 60 days across the programme, and it's it's a tough challenge, but one that we'll continue to support, and we'll continue to provide our knowledge to the sector and work with employers and providers to be able to do that.
It's been a question that somebody's asked around what type of construction engineering is the board responsible for. So within the design and development pathway, this has structural engineering as a specialism, which will include things such as BIM, structural design, and materials science. So hopefully that gives you a flavour for the kind of skills needed within that pathway. Someone's asked what age the T-level students will be. So these will be your standard A-level age range. So broadly speaking, 16 to 18 age range. Just scanning through. Is there any other questions that anyone else wants to come in and cover off? What we will be doing, there's a number of questions that have come in, some common themes, especially around the work experience side that I'm spotting here. What we will be doing after this webinar is we will be sharing the slides with you. We'll also be sharing the Q&A, which we'll provide responses to with you as well. This will all follow on in the next couple of days, and then what we will do after that, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we'll be connecting with you to get our first meeting into the diary as well. We will have a dedicated FAQs page on the website as well. So all the questions that we get in as we go forward, we will have a FAQ section to the website as well with all the questions.
I think we've got somebody wants to ask the question live, Scott. Callie said it's quite a long-winded question. Maybe take them off mute and see if they want to speak.
Okay, Callie. All right, yeah, got your hand up. Okay, Callie, I will just try and take you off of mute if I can. Bear with me. Susie, I think you might need to do that.
Callie is showing us self-muted at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We
Can you hear
Callie.
me?
We can, yes.
Hi. First of all, yeah, hi. So first of all, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. To the rest of my colleagues, I also sit on the Employer and Industry Board for Construction. And I could tell you from my experience so far, sitting on the City and Guilds Employer and Industry Board, the opportunity to shape and influence qualifications that both you as an employer and those that are currently competing for these opportunities, having the influence to shape those to suit your needs has been very, very integral for me as a senior Section 106 officer for Barnet Council in supporting my developers, but also supporting my communities to make sure that the qualifications that they're aspiring for as well as that they're taking up, are aligned with the employer aspirations as much as theirs. So once again, City and Guilds, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. My question is really around the £5 billion that the government is currently investing on fiber optics and broadband. And I'm just wondering whether this qualification in engineering especially and the T levels would align with the aspirations, for example, with organizations like BT and Openreach, which do have a trainee engineering product, albeit internally developed and internally supported. Thank you.